News, views, voices of the global.
If you look at India's exports to the United States, we have made some real significant jumps in the last decade. But to continue with that momentum, we need to impress upon several organizations to help us, including Quad, which will help us to make ourselves relevant in the overall trade surplus that we need to have with Western countries and Western Europe. So I'm very interested in working with academicians, researchers, politicians, people in public service to come up with a draft policy of how India can be a significant mover and shaker in the whole trade regime. Three things. One, we have to have transparency and stability in policy for the long term, irrespective of who governs the country. So it has to be independent of the government, the government dispensation. The second piece is how do you manage India's currency versus the dollar, the value of the Indian currency versus the dollar. That is a very significant aspect. And the third piece is what countries like Singapore and Dubai have done, which is the ease of doing business. We don't want the trade deficit between US and India to be ready. We want the trade deficit between US and China to be ready. Yeah. Right now it is over $500 billion annualized. Putting tariffs is a very bad strategy because we have seen that work against US in the long term. At the end of the day, US is a capitalistic market. They will figure out ways and means to remain competitive irrespective of the tariffs. So tariffs is not a great strategy, but we have to figure out a way how to strengthen the dollar and at the same time figure out a China plus strategy in terms of imports. And that is what TPG wanted to do over a period of time, but that was killed. But we need an alternative to TPG. I think the macroeconomic indicators have been extremely positive. You look at agriculture production, you look at demand for consumer goods, you look at government infrastructure spending, and you look at exports. These are the four big things that you look for and you look at economic indicators. All of those are in the right direction, but for the aberration that we had to face because of COVID. The real problem that we need to fix is a one-year problem. When we had COVID in India, you still had graduates graduating out of college, children coming out of high schools. That did not stop. But you had a complete full stop on the economic front because of COVID. So that 1 year gap is actually what is contributing to the alleged or in unemployment rate today. So we need to figure out that 1 year gap syndrome. How do we fix that? You have to export labor capital. India has to become the labor capital of the world. India can export its human talent to every part of the world, make them significant contributors to those economies, and that in turn helps with branding India as well as in building FDI into India. 100%. Everyone is struggling for labor right now. If you look at the demographic dividend, we will lose that advantage in the next 20-30 years. Might as well use it and invest in people and make them our ambassadors in every part of the world. That is the only strategy for helping India to become dominant as a country, just like what China did in the 80s. Absolutely. I think the numbers all point to India being a safe country for betting on, for the West as well as for the rest of the world. So from macroeconomic indicator, geopolitical risk, India is definitely a strong contender for being a developed nation. What we need to look for is the bottom half of the pyramid. How do you ensure the 600 million plus people in the bottom half of the pyramid figure out a way for making their economic lives more sustainable and less dependent on government? If we can figure out that part, I think being a developed country is different from having a significant portion of your population struggling for daily needs. So that is the bridge we need to cross.